Hey, does that work? Yeah. All right. Thank you guys. Thank you for being there. Thank you for hearing my talk. It's going to be great. I'm going to talk about something that you might have heard about in a previous talk called game user research. So if you guys were there at the Scott Warner talk, it's going to be great. I'm going to go in a little bit of a different direction. Scott is very much on the creative side. And throughout his talk, Scott brought up fairly often, deal with research, external research expert. External research expert. So that's exactly what I'm going to talk about today. My name is Phil from EA Montreal. I'm glad to be here. So basically what is, hey, I got this much better. What is this talk about? First of all, we're going to go over what is game user research again, from my perspective. So hopefully you're going to learn something new, something a bit different. How is game user research done in the field? So what are the actual actions that we're doing? How do we go out and collect the data? Why is game user research relevant? I'm even going to flip this because I think Scott made a good case of explaining why it's relevant. I'm going to tell you why more and more it's becoming a necessity if you want your product to be successful on the market. How do we organize game user research? So basically at EA, what kind of team do we have? And how do we work? And how do we collaborate with dev teams? And the last bit, well, all the things that I would have liked to know when I started this career. All of the things, a couple of tips to make it work on your project. Because whether you're working on the video games, whether you are working on a software, any types of application, mobile, on the next WhatsApp, on the next Tinder app, doesn't matter. A lot of the things that I'm going to talk about today are things that hopefully you can bring up and use on your project. Whether you are a designer, an engineer, or maybe you want to become a user research practitioner, that's fine. But hopefully at the end of this talk, you're going to be able to yourself weaponize it. Because yes, user research is a set of tool, it's a field, but it's also a state of mind, it's also a philosophy, and the idea is to, well, why not apply it onto your work? EA, I guess just by show of hands, so you know people know EA? Yes, all right. I'm going to do this a couple of times, raising hands just to make sure that you are still with me. We are known for games. I hear that in Portugal you guys like a little bit FIFA. That's what I hear. You guys care mostly about FIFA, actually. That's what I hear. However, we have a bunch of other games. EA is known for its sports title a lot. But I just want to quickly bring up that there's a lot of games that you might not even know are under the EA umbrella. Battlefield, Battlefront, Mass Effect, so big AAA shooter games, action-adventure games. The sports games, obviously, so FIFA, NHL, Madden. But there's also this other types of games, games that we call casual gamers, family games, and not necessarily on the AAA platform or PC side, but also on the mobile side. And then there's this other, I would gonna call miscellaneous. So every type of project like Need for Speed or Unravel. If you haven't played Unravel, it's an amazing side-scroller co-op activity. Really recommend it. So there's a huge array of product when you work at EA that you get to touch, to experiment, and get a feel for. That's EA. Me. Why am I saying the words? Why am I here today? Why am I talking to you? I started in 2006. As a user research moderator at Ubisoft. At that time, I didn't even know user research was a field. I didn't even know I would enjoy research. All I saw as a kid was like, Ubisoft, video games, yeah. And so I went and applied, and apparently they liked my face, they liked my enthusiasm for games, and then I realized, wow, they are running tests on games to make them better. I could be doing that for a living. Oh, and then I got back to study marketing research. So basically, I went out to learn fundamental research skills because I was like, yeah, I want to do that for a living and I want to be good at it. I kept good friends with Ubisoft, kept high-fiving some of my friends while I was at university. So I got back there right after school to become a user research analyst, and there I got to work on exciting big products like Assassin's Creed. Some of you guys might know a little bit about that, but also a wide array of products on the Wii, products with kids, different types of audience, so I learned a lot. Afterwards, I moved and I kind of went on and joined Scott Warner's side. I went on the production side. So all of that first part was me being a service, so providing a service to a team. right? Coming up to a team, hey, how can we help with research? On Watch Dogs, there was this new role at Ubisoft called the User Research Project Manager. So basically my role was just to be on the team and monitor research needs. What are people doing that could be informed by research? And to bring that up to the user research team and make it happen, right? In those years, I got to learn the challenges of making games. I mean, I'm not a programmer. You guys are all becoming programmers. You guys are becoming engineer. What you do is completely insane. It's difficult. It's great. You're taking a lot of risk. And I got to learn that in my years working on Watch Dogs. 2 years ago, then I joined EA, and I started a brand new lab in Montreal, EA Motive, which is a brand new studio. The studio shipped last year the single player for Battlefront 2, which was the first software at the studio. It's never easy. And I got to create like that big lab, that big 25-station user research lab. It was like Christmas 25 times. Like, oh, PlayStation, yay, yeah, you shouldn't have. And then I would open another box and I was just like, this is amazing. Build the whole lab from nothing. I had a lot of fun. So this is just a snapshot of all the product that I managed to squeeze my name in the credits. So basically one of the first game that I worked on was Open Season on the Wii. Now I'm looking at this crowd and I'm like, wow, some of you guys don't know that game because you were too young, which makes me feel a little bit old. But believe me, at the time when the Wii was like brand new, we invited kids over to play test that games, and they just did not know how to handle the controller. It was insane, but it was super informative. It was very fun. I poured a lot of my heart and soul into games like Splinter Cell and then Watch Dogs, and obviously. And more recently, I got to help a little bit on Anthem, which is a game coming out this week. You might know about it. Give it a shot. It's going to be a great experience. So that's it. Now what? This is what you do, Phil. All right, blah, 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 blah. Enough about you. Sure. All right, let's move on. Game user research. What is that? A couple of things keep in mind for the rest of my presentation. User experience research, user research, game user research, game user experience research, all the same thing, right? I'm going to go from the expression to the other. Please don't overthink things. We're talking about game user experience research, game user research. Also, I'm going to be using the player. What did he do? What is he doing? How is he confused? It could be a she as well. I'm just not going to go he or she every time. But gamer, or it could be male or female. That's not a thing. OK. So, I mean, Scott talked about it earlier. I'm just going to reiterate. Well, what do you do with your research? You research with kids. Are you trying to get into people's brain and try to, make the game addictive? No, that's not it. The other thing also, we're not. Are you trying to do the research and decide for the designer what he or she is going to do? No, it's not about it. It all starts with a design intention. That's where it starts from. Designers, creative directors, they want the player to experience wonders, surprises, challenges, joy. They have a vision, they have an idea. My job is to understand what it is. Right? That's the first step. And that vision comes in many forms. Sometimes it could be super clear. Like, I want this experience to last 6 hours. I want the player to die 2 times per mission. And I want the player to cry here and to laugh there. But sometimes it's really just, I want the player to just have fun and feel like he or she has the freedom to play. That is something I can roll with. It's not something that I want to tamper with. And then at the other spectrum of there, there's the user experience, which is the receiving end. This is what the player actually lives, what the player will experiment. And in 100% of the time, the design intentions, the objective is that translates into an enjoyable, pleasant user experience. But the player doesn't see the design intention. They don't know about that. All they see is what they play and how they feel, what they perceive. I'm sure it happened to you, like grandma giving you a gift at Christmas, and you're like, oh, sweet, homemade mittens. Amazing. But you know that the intentions are good, so you're like, all right, thank you, grandma, it's fine. But in video games, you don't know anything about the intention. So you're just like, damn it, homemade mittens, and you're angry, and you go to eBay game, and you go sell the game, and you stop playing. That's brutal. That's how it is. Because unfortunately, they are friction points that comes in together. Like we call that friction point, blockers, barriers. They get in the way of the design intention, and they just keep the user experience from being what it's supposed to be. And it can come into many forms. It could be frustration because the game is too hard. It could be boredom because the game is too easy. It could be confusion because you just don't know where to go. I mean, some of you guys, I'm sure you played little games called Zelda. I'm pretty sure that at some point you were looking for the key, that goddamn key, and you just don't know where it is. So what do? You go on the internet, look for the solution. This is like the worst nightmare for us. If you guys go on the internet, somebody failed. I've never heard any designers saying like, yeah, it's going to be amazing. You're going to kill the dragon. You're going to go through that door. You're going to jump through the water. You're going to be confused. You're going to go on the internet. You're going to look what it is, and then you're going to figure it out. That's never the intention. Well, if you have to go on the internet, that means something failed. And that's basically it. That's when we come into play. Our job is to fully understand what the designers are going for, and then we bring our expertise to fully assess the user experience. So we draw a good portrait of how the player's feeling. Are you having fun? Are you not having fun? Is it too hard? Is it too easy? Are the controls good? Are the buttons mapped correctly? This is everything that we do. And this is what we act on. This is where our recommendation, and this is where we want to be impactful in a game. Quick example, a little image called from a game, a little game called Dragon Age Inquisition. In this case, the intentions are to become the best swordsman of the land, to be so that the player feels strong and feels like he can conquer the whole kingdom, right? Hopefully, the player will feel competent, the player will feel strong, and the player will be eager to face new challenges. Come on me, dragon, or whatever. However, in reality, when we start running sessions and playtests, we realize that the very first enemy, like the peasant, the one with the little pitchfork, kills you 15 times. 15 times! Like, you're like, all right, this is, like, how can you actually feel strong and eager to face new challenges since you feel you can't really get out of your own village? That's not gonna happen, right? So this is when we come into play. Understand what the game wants to achieve, assess how different it is in terms of the actual user experience, and then address those friction points, get them out of the way so that this can happen. That's what it is. We're colleagues. We're partners. We're helpers. We are not in the way. Quick definition. Do you chew on people's brain and try to make the game addictive and what? No, we do not do that. Games focuses on players' psychology and their behavior. Its objective is to help game developers deliver players the best gaming experience possible, period. So this is what we do. How is it done in the field? Like that next bit, keep that in mind. You don't necessarily need those super big infrastructure or those complicated technique on your own project, on your own application, or whatever you guys will be working on. There are stuff in there that you could actually take home and use on your own project. This is my way of illustrating how we do user research. These are the things that we can do. Obviously, direct observation, watch your players play. Watch your players play. Questionnaire at interview, ask them how they feel. Telemetry and gameplay data, Scott showed a couple of great examples of what heat map can look like. Measure as many things as you can about the experience. And finally, expert reviews. There are a lot of design principles. There are a lot of heuristics out there that's super useful. I'm gonna give you a couple of examples. First of all, direct observation. Watch your players play. This is one of our rooms in Montreal. We call it the Dreamatorium. This is where the dreams happen. Now, this basically just, no kidding, is basically the room when we invite players over. Players that are not from the studio, like really players out there, and just play the game in a candid way. Sit down with us, talk aloud as they play, so be super frank, be super comfortable. Like this is a couch, we bring in chips, 7-Up, Coke. We're not allowed to bring beer for legal reasons. Like I don't want to taint the experimental condition either. But this is where it happens. We also run big sessions with 24 to 25 players at the same time for multiplayer sessions, obviously. Now the difference between the two approaches, here I can really know how the players feel. Is he or she confused? Is the game difficult? What are the actual intentions? Here, I can have an idea of if my game is good or not, because I got more sample. If I want to assess if the game is fun or not, and I'm using this method with the one-on-ones, I might stumble upon a gamer that, I don't know, his girlfriend left him yesterday, and he's super grumpy this morning, and then the game is super bad. Like, I need to water it down in a bigger sample. This is why we get these big rooms. Doesn't mean that because we have a lot of players that we cannot observe them. This is our wall of monitor in our observation room, and it allows us, it's a feed from every single screen that you see on the bottom picture. And it helps us take a look at how are people actually playing against each other. Are they playing together in a multiplayer game? Oh, player 4 is attacking player 6. Player 4 is doing, well, nothing. Apparently, player 4 is just sitting in the corner. And then it helps us have an idea of how team dynamic works. This room is the same room that is behind that one-way mirror. We call that the observation room. This is where designers are allowed to go. Designers do not come into my session room. They're not allowed. It's a rule. It's rule number 1, actually. I'm going to tell you why. I care about the project that I work on, but I'm not part of the dev team. So if the game, some people say that the game is very, very bad, I'm not going to, curl into a fetal position and go like be all super insulted and angry and sad. I mean, it's never fun when the results are bad, but the results are bad. I'm going to say it like it is. And also, we want to make the participants at ease. People are more comfortable telling that outside guy that the game sucks. He's comfortable also saying, it doesn't feel like he needs to sugarcoat it all and to just like tell me that the game is super good for nothing. Would you be comfortable looking at a designer and say, hey, dude, the last 2 years of your life? Like, no, not really, right? This is when I step in. I try to think of and try to put in like, it could be better, and then to try to change it into real insights. Look at them, watch them play, and try to resist the temptation to tell them what to do, right? When your little cousin come in and play, and you're like, go there, no, go back, then open the door, and then no, shoot, reload, you're dead, you didn't listen to what I was going to say. Resist the temptation to tell them where to go, because this is when the experience becomes insightful. When the experience is done, talk to them. Super important. And be receptive to the feedback. It's about opening your mind to the feedback. It could be either a questionnaire if you have a huge group of people. This is not a talk about good questionnaire. There are a lot of resources out there. I'm just saying it's important to listen and to sometimes dig in and to ask why. Oh, dude, your game sucks. Okay, my game sucks. Why? It's too hard. Okay, why? I keep getting killed. Okay, why? Well, because I don't know where to hide. I got nowhere to hide. Oh, now we're getting somewhere. The game lacks cover. 5 whys in, now we start to have something insightful. So talk to them. Ask why, be receptive. Measure. This is a screenshot from Battlefield Tracker, which basically tracks individual players who play Battlefield 5. Those are my stats, and I made it very small so that you guys can't read, for obvious reasons. I'm not good. It just shows that I got 0 kill with the pistol. It's a lot of 0 kills in there. I'm not very good. But it's interesting, though. It's just important to measure. Is one of the weapons overpowered? All of the kills may be being done with the assault rifle, and everybody's playing with the assault rifle. Useless shotgun, useless sniper. Why is that? Sometimes just the issue comes with the number. Measure everything that you can. Now that last one is heuristics. What's a heuristics? It's a shortcut. It's a set of principles, a couple of guidelines. Scott brought a lot of principles just a moment ago, so I'm just going to bring a couple of examples of my own, but he drew a good portrait. Heuristics are basically a set of guidelines that when you play your content, when you review your interface, look for transgression to these guidelines. There's a lot of lists that exists out there. I'm just going to go over 2 examples. The first one is object in your game world should mimic object, or as much as possible, object in the real life. At least match player expectations. When you see this, what do you guys think it is? It's health? Yes, it's health, right? Tell me it's health. Right? If you walk over this, I don't remember which game I took that, but your expectations is that if you walk over this, it's going to be beneficial to your character. This is because other game taught you that, because that's a Red Cross, because that's hospital, pharmacy. There's so many symbols out there that mimics that. What if I tell you that in my game, it is an anti-personal mind and it blows you up. You're going like, what? You're like, what is this? Keep that in mind. And the second one is the state of the game must reflect the player's action. Right? So if you walk up to an elevator and you want to go down with the elevator, you know which button you need to push, and you see that. Are you going to push again? You can. It's fun. Click, 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 click. But it's already coming up because it's a simple panel, but it's telling you that the elevator is on its way up. If you click on the button and it doesn't light up, what do? Click, 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 click until you like confirm that you've been receiving my request, please. That's how it works. So that's true for interface. That's true for everything. Give player feedback. Make sure that the player knows that you acknowledge it and that the action that he did actually got through. Super important. Do all of that. And please do all of that as much as possible when you can. Don't just perform direct observation. Say, yeah, I saw that. I know I'm going to fix it. Wait a minute. Have you talked to your player? I've watched a lot of people play Assassin's Creed in my life. The difference between a player who is lost and confused, the difference with a player that is exploring and enjoying, not easy to see. It's actually just a player just going like this and looking around, playing with the camera like this. Exploring and looking for something is basically looks the same. Walk up to your player and then ask him or her, are you lost? Are you just exploring? Are you exploring? All right, take a step back, smoke bomb disappeared. Get out of his way. But still, ask him the question. So basically what I'm saying is blend all the information. Blend. Yes, like that's why I put a little blender in there, so that you can take all these data collected and blend it. And you're like, oh, data collecting, blend, and blender. And you're like, Phil, you're such an imaginative poet. I'm like, I know, and you're welcome. Blend, blend, blend all of these data. I mean, it's corny, I know, but it's true. It's going to keep you from doing a lot of mistakes. Make sure that you look the problems through various angles. So this is, in a nutshell, that was how it's done in the field. Hopefully by now you're already convinced, especially with Scott's talk, that it's relevant. I'm going to tell you how I believe that it's become increasingly relevant, even a necessity. Because a lot of people will come up and say, well, why not just design game better? Why just not be good for the first time? Just do it. Nail it. Like, I mean, you've seen Scott. He's been doing that for 20 years, and he still believes in it. I mean, a lot of times throughout his talk, I would have liked to chest bump him. I mean, we're not on a chest bump basis yet, but I was so happy with everything he was saying. Designers are humans. Humans are biased, even the most senior one, and you need research for that. My favorite sentence that we keep hammering to the designers all the time is, you're not a user. You're not a user. You're not a user. You're not a user. How can I put this? The user is not you. Anyway, there's a lot of ways we can put it. Keep that in mind. People who worked on a game, and that's true for your project as well. When you work on something for 2 to 3 years, you lose sight of everything. You don't. Your opinion, purely subjective opinion, is not good anymore. You think of difficulty. Oh, my game is not too hard. I can kill the boss pretty easily. Like, yeah, man, you've been programming it and beating it for 3 years. And totally invalid. Think about designers who have to design games for kids. Like, try to put yourself in on a 5-year-old's shoes. I mean, not the actual shoes; it's way too small. But you know what I mean. Try to put your mind into and figure out how to have fun. I mean, I was looking at my daughter. I mean, she's 3-year-old, but still. I mean, I gave her a nice present at Christmas last year. She just like threw everything in there and started playing with the box, and it was like, oh damn! Like that was so. And I just realized that her perception of what is fun and where the places where she finds fun, I'm not the user. Definitely not the user of the box that she was playing with. That's just for sure. Okay, you might know that TV show, Fairly Odd Parent. It's on Netflix. I thought it was pretty funny. This example, I think, is relevant. Like in that scene, I don't have a clip, but I won't do it justice, but I'm gonna explain it to you. The parents take the kid to Escalator Land. And while they're on their way there, at some point the kids just ask, Mommy, Daddy, when are we actually gonna get to the ride? When is it? And then the mommy and the daddy just screams together, well, this is the ride. And they're just having a lot of fun, and the kid is like, oh, he thought he was actually on his way to Escalator Land, but that is Escalator Land. So I guess that the point here is, if finding the fun is not easy. And if the idea was to make sure that the whole family would have fun, there's somebody failed drastically. The escalator, even though super functional, is not at a pacing that would make the kid have fun. And the other thing is that usable doesn't mean fun. Right? Even though if everything is perfectly understood, even though if your design is correct and on the nose, like this escalator is perfect. It gets you up, it gets you down and up. It's just not fun. It does exactly what it's supposed to do. Doesn't make it fun. Finding the fun is not easy. That's something user research can help with. That game, that's it. I don't know if some of you guys might have played them, some of you guys might have not. I think user research is increasingly important. If you think in the 90s, yes, EA Sports in the 90s, like that game, it was like these Mega Man games, one button to kick, one button to pass, which is basically the same move, by the way, it's exactly the same animation, and one button to move around. That's it, tutorial done. You can go out and play. I just explained you the whole game. The need for user research is maybe not as critical. Just move 10 years forward, then suddenly you get all this wide array of action that can be performed. Take a football games, there's a different type of play that comes in. The soccer game, well, obviously you can do these cross, you can do these types of pass that has an aerial ball. Sometimes the ball stays low. You can aim on the net. Suddenly those are barriers. We talked about the barrier to entry. We talked about the friction points. They are getting increasingly big. I try to get my girlfriend into video games very often, and she likes to play old school. I like to play Mario Brothers. She likes to play these old games, which is fine because the barriers of entry are lower. But with these games, they're getting increased. Don't get me wrong, technology is amazing. Design intentions can be more and more ambitious, but now, jump 10 years again, we are now looking at simulations. We are it's almost at the point like they're like spinning on the ground, and it's all real. Like as the game progresses, your character and your players become weaker. You can injure Wayne Rooney. Like Wayne Rooney, your main player, you can actually injure him and lose him for the full season. And well, that's not fun apparently, but it's realistic, I guess. Those are all barriers to entry and need to be careful. That's why the role of game user research is increasingly important. Okay, and the very last thing I want to talk about, and Scott briefly mentioned it, is what we call cognitive bias. Every designers are humans. Every humans are biased. Cognitive bias is not a thing that you have and I don't have because I'm above that. No, we all have those. Game user research is there to help you around those. The main one that I'm going to talk about, there's a user list of it. The main one I'm going to talk about, because it's very well known, is the confirmation bias. Confirmation bias makes you focus on the information that confirms your thesis, your initial opinion. I'm pretty sure you guys have some of your friends on Facebook who share links only when it suits them, only when it's actually confirming their point of view. And they've been exposed to research, they've been exposed to study that contradict their point of view. Are they going to share these articles on Facebook? Absolutely not. This is confirmation bias at its best. But this is all us, this is all what we do. Game user research, we take a step back, and when we look at this, we try to make the most of it. We try to make sure that at least get a sense that the designer's beliefs and opinions and will might not completely overlap with objective facts. The danger here is don't be that guy and don't go out and focus on that area and be the I told you so guy. Right? Don't be that. This is counterproductive. Try to take a step back, look at the full picture. That's a confirmation bias. And not being part of the team per se, as a game user researcher and an external specialist, helps us get around that a little bit. So that's why game user research is relevant, I would say even critical. How do we organize? How do we work? I see we are a external team, but what does that mean? UX research, this is our logo. This is how we communicate inside EA. Our leadership is in Vancouver. So basically our senior director and our directors are in Vancouver. There's a big EA studio. But we work hand in hand, literally, like this picture proves it. We work hand in hand with the designers in the studio. EA has studio all over the world. And even though our bosses is in Vancouver, we work as one team and we work closer to that team. And the reason we have that hybrid structure is that if I get to speak face-to-face with these guys, I get to know better their design intention. I get to sit down, I get to go out and have lunch, have a laugh. That changes everything. And second of all, it helps us understand how difficult it is to clean bugs. You know, when something is buggy, it helps me understand crunch time, beta, alpha, and all these difficulties being near them. So we have basically research site all over the world. There was an interesting question in this area. I don't know, people have shuffled around, but there's somebody who asked, how do you do worldwide research? I don't think it's always a necessity to have a worldwide representative, to be represented worldwide when you do user research. That being said, it's interesting that the way we work, like we can reach out to a wider audience easier. Our big hive is in Vancouver, but if we want to run a session on NHL, for instance, like this is hockey, like the Montreal area is a pretty good area. Like we care a lot about Montreal Canadiens in the hockey league. This is something very important to us. If I was to run a session on FIFA, then we have a Guildford location in London. It's much easier to have this big fan. Same thing for Madden. If I want to go to Madden, which is in NFL, San Francisco or Orlando, much easier to reach out to the right audience. We work as one team and we share the load. It's not easy, but there's a lot of VidCon, there's a lot of phone call, but it's fun. It's fun. Very quick, because I think it's going to be interesting for you guys. Our team, 45 employees right now. Managers, yeah, sure, we need them. User experience researcher, this is the bulk of our team. IT lab technician to make things running. Just want to spend a minute talk about these guys. They're not a well-known profession, but they're so important. They're the people that make the research happen. Logistics. Basically, I think when you think SINFO, you think of the company there, you think of the speaker here. Research operations specialists are actually all the staff, all the students making this happen. None, with these guys not here, this is not happening. Well, I have somebody helping me in Montreal. She is the one reaching out to the players online. This is our presence on Facebook, if you want to look us up. So at EA Playtesting on Facebook. She's the one reaching out to our players and making sure to invite people, making sure we have the right person coming in, the right profile of players. And she's great. She basically, I call her a Swiss knife because she does a lot of things. The other point I want to make among our team is that we are multidisciplinary. Various backgrounds. The list I have here is not exhaustive. Human-computer interaction, sure, absolutely. This is the core of what we do. How can the human talk to a machine better? Right? This is a field that's so important. Psychology and cognitive science. How is the player learning? How is the player memorizing the information? This is all very useful. We have a little bit of everything in our team. Marketing research. Obviously, how do people consume our product? This is where I come in. But also computer science, more and more. We are collecting, we are storing, manipulating, interpreting, visualizing, and communicating on a big amount of data. And I practiced it, by the way. Like all of these verbs, one after the other. I practiced a little bit. We need computer science now. It's extremely important. Like more and more. I would even say, you know what? I'm going to do it again. We need to blend them. It's about blending them, blending all of these skills. Like we can draw a good portrait of the situation by blending data collection. I know it's a corny analogy. I'm using it again. I don't care. I have the pointer. Important. We come from different types of field. We help each other. We complement each other. That's the idea. Now, I don't know. I've been talking for a long. I don't know how I'm doing on time. I'm going to go through a couple of tips because, again, we have these fancy rooms. We have these big techniques. We are the experts in the field. But I want you to leave this talk and say, right, this is a thing that I can champion maybe on my team, on my project, without being an expert. Or even if I have an expert in-house, how can I help this person make a better job? There's a couple of things that might help you. Understand, tip number one, understand team dynamics. Some people are very good with numbers. Some people are very good with abstract concept, with colors. Artists, engineer, researchers, don't always get along all very well. If my results come and ask an artist to tone down a little bit his vision for product usage efficiency, he's not going to like me. Like, I'm not his best friend. But it's, in a way, it's up to the user researcher to frame the message and package it so that people can see the value. Because ultimately, we just want to make a good game. That's it. So understanding that is very important. The second one, again, that touches on the question that somebody asked and that Scott, a couple of minutes earlier, explained. Okay, you guys are ending out papers. Is it the end of the semester for you guys right now? Is it like, you're not on a rush or anything? Or I'm pretty sure that some of you guys were like sipping coffee, like, oh, paper is due like in 8 hours. I'm gonna just maximize the points. Or at the end of an exam, like the exam is ending in 10 minutes, so you're looking at all the questions, you're like, all right, which one, where is the value, right? Because I wanna make sure I get a passing note. Well, this is something that productions are confronted with every day. And as you identify issues during user research, it's important to assess the gravity of it. Don't let your researcher, or if you are the researcher, don't sound the alarm all the time. Usability issue, everybody stop what we're doing. Wait a minute, not necessarily. Is it frequent? Is it just a one-time deal? Are you good to go after that, once you've gone through it? Is it persistent? Is it something that bothers you until, like, forever, until you drop the controller? I show of hand, who played Skyrim here? Skyrim Elder Scroll? Yeah, all right. Skyrim is an amazing game. But in the first hours that I played that game, the menus, oh my God, the menus are so horrible. Like just going through them and just not being able, like it took me, I feel like the first hour I spent half of my time in the menus, which is weird. It's not supposed to be. But after 100 hours of gameplay, then I started like making the most out of the menus. Well, that's persistency there. There was a big issue. It was super impactful at first, but over time it became less persistent and so you need to assess the gravity and have an idea of that. Use that assess gravity, and that leads me to tip number 3, prioritize. You're gonna have to make smart choices near the end. And at some point, you use that, and a producer comes to you and say, hey Phil, can my game ship without this? What if I don't fix that? Are we gonna get killed in the marketplace? Are people gonna go onto Reddit and say, this is the worst thing? Everybody that made it should die. Like, are people gonna go insane about it? Then that's when this come up. Is it just a subtle possible enhancement? I have to be honest with the results that I bring in, or is it just something that would be nice? Or is it something that nobody can get past the first enemy? People will drop, people will hit it. This prevent task completion. This needs to be fixed. Yes, sound the alarm. Everybody stop what you're doing. Nobody goes home before that is fixed. Like, I might be exaggerating. This one is pretty simple. I'll let you read the very complicated comic. Don't do research if it's pointless. Scott said it. When you go into research, when you want to start running a session, how are the information that you're collecting going to be useful to support your decision-making process? If it's just like, well, I'm curious to know if people prefer the door when it's blue or when it's red. All right, sure. What are you going to do with this? I mean, are you really going to change the colors of your door with it? Maybe yes, maybe not. Think about it. Is it worth it? Because otherwise people around you on your team will start losing faith in research. And when that happens, it's tough to reignite, my friend, believe me. And the very last one, then I'm kind of angry because Scott really stole my thunder here. He had a very similar slide. Make this process iterative. Don't do it just once. Figured it out. I run a session. I know it all. I'm going to fix things and I'm good. Bam, user research. Sure, but no. Design. Come up with your design, run a study, results in analysis, make adjustment, which leads to a new design, and make that wheel turn as often as possible. And that's true throughout the whole development cycle. So even if it's prototype, very often I hear designers saying like, oh, well, I'm at the conception stage, so there's not much that you can do for me right now. I'm like, is it? Really? Like, we could be working on the prototype. We could be working on just a simple finding. It doesn't have to be like a longitudinal study over a year with players and see if they grow their beer, if they're going to start liking the game more or not. No, it could just be an agile session that takes 5 minutes, something that's super smart. And obviously, near the end, there's a lot of polish opportunity. But I mean, have that wheel spin and turn throughout the whole development cycle. I think it's much more useful to have a series of small tests than that one big test in the middle of your production. That's my take on it. So I'm going to leave you just with that message. Be receptive in the feedback. You're not the user. You're not a user. The user's not you. Keep that in mind. Run those research. make it an iterative process, be open to the feedback, and resist the temptation to, when you observe somebody play, resist the temptation to give directive, because that's where the insights come from. And you also blend discipline and blend the data, the collected data. It's very important. It's a corny analogy, but it's true. That's what I got. Thank you. Like everyone else, I take questions. The guy with the microphone. Somebody down.
Hey. Thank you so much for coming and thank you for the presentation. I was wondering, the same way that you do, like, so you showed the various studios that you have someone there. So I was wondering if you're playtesting a game in Australia, obviously the public that goes to the studio and tests the game is not the same people as they're going to play the game in London, for instance. Do you guys minimize this? Do you guys try to find people from other countries, or do you send the game to London? I'm sorry, I know it's weird for me to making this question like dressed like this, but I was wondering if you minimize.
Spider-Man, Peter Parker, it's fine.
And I actually want to know more about the opposite effect. If you found like evidence of people in Australia being different from the people playing the game, for instance, a shooter in London.
Yeah. Okay, that's a very good question. Now, there's two types of objectives. Some of the objectives sometimes are, can people understand the game? Is it confusing or not? Yeah. So a lot about it is usability. When it's usability, personally, I don't really care where it is in the world, right? I look at you guys, you all have fires in your eyes. Portuguese people are smart. I don't doubt it at all, right? But if I run a study in Montreal and people are confused, people don't get it, I suspect that people in Portugal won't get it either, right? When it's about usability and accessibility, it's much more universal. Then when the objective is, say, is it fun or not? Do people enjoy the game or not? Is it likable? When it's appreciation that I call, then in this point, yes. It's ideally, we would be running session everywhere. Like for instance, Anthem. Anthem was when those big session near the end, obviously we were going elsewhere. That's one of the, I would say that's my answer. And what we do, we send the build to the other UXR site, and then I'm say, hey, London guy, catch this build, run a study for me, please. And we do the same thing in San Francisco, and sometimes things land into my lab. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you want to talk about if you found evidence of people being. Yeah.
Okay, that is fundamental research. Honestly, I don't have much for you to say right now. I can look things up because I know there's probably a lot of papers published on that topic. It's very interesting and a very important one. But I would say what we know for sure is that Europe and North America are more similar than probably the Asian market. The Asian market, they play a lot of online games. They consume and they behave differently. So it's doesn't mean that a game, if it works like Assassin's Creed, works in North America. Assassin's Creed, it also works in Asia. But sometimes we need to adapt to a lot of things. But again, I mean, you can send me an email, and maybe I can find a couple of research that already exists.
Okay, thank you so much. I don't know if there's anyone going to pick up the mic.
Somebody,
I can just talk for a bit. I love Spider-Man.
What is the best approach for low cost for an indie studio?
Fantastic question. I love it. Thank you. If I could have said that one I would have. There's the things that we called, and we talked about it earlier this morning with our colleague from Insomniac who did a great talk a couple of days ago. We talked about what we call RIP, so rapid iterative playtesting. I'm just going to leave you with that little piece of information. When you get 6 or 8 users to try your product, you will most likely find approximately 85% of the critical and very important issue. So let me bring back to this one. The orange and the red one. If you have 6 or 8 players play your content and you run it like fairly well without like tainting the experience too much and being able to step away, and you do your direct observation and you really look at what's going wrong, you're actually going to fetch. And then obviously if you run your study with 20, 25, 30, 35 people, but every time you add one player, you're just almost wasting your effort because you're going to get to that 90, 91, 92%. I would rather say stick to 6 or 8, fix the main things you're going to figure out, and then make the wheels turn around. And rapid iterative playtesting doesn't necessarily need, again, big infrastructure. It's a thing that you could just set up a couch in the corner of your office, or even at home, and put the player in a situation where you're comfortable. Take a step back. Don't be breathing down its neck when he's playing, like, hey man, how you doing? Like, is it good? Like, just don't do that. It's like when you're reading a book and somebody's reading over your shoulder, you're always like, stop, let me do my thing. So if you're able to take a step back and do good observation, it's gonna be extremely useful, and do it in an agile way. And this is what we call RIP, rapid iterative playtesting. I don't know if that helps, but believe me, with that little approach, you're gonna do wonder. It's much better than doing nothing, that's for sure.
Thank you.
Does that answer? Yeah, is that what you were looking for, Ish?
It is actually, but there's, if I may, I've seen several approaches that you talked about. So you have recording, you have questioning, you have the blending of all things. But obviously, doing it low cost, there are some things that are going to be preferable to do than others. So what are the priority that you should aim for?
The low-hanging fruit, basically. It's the low-hanging fruit. I mean, telemetry is a luxury. I'm going to give you just a quick example of how, when I started working, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle on the Game Boy Advance. It's been a while. What we were doing is that we had people coming over to play, and we would use, some of you guys don't even know, never saw that, I'm pretty sure, VHS. Right? So we would put in VHS, and we would actually record the player's play. And when it was kind of rewatched today, we'd go and rewatch and look at the players. I mean, just only doing that was extremely useful. And that's very low cost. And we would just, like, I would take a scale, super simple scale, big smiley face, sad face, and I would ask the kid just to point where they feel about the experience, right? Run sessions and sessions at the end. I mean, we would see that, oh, faces are getting more smiley and more smiley. That's a low cost. That's very much low cost. Ask your little cousin to do that, and it's gonna work. It's not gonna be scientific, but it's gonna give you an idea. So that's a simple measure, measuring the amount of time a user required to finish a task. That's not hardcore telemetry. All you need is a stopwatch. Pretty sure there's one on your phone, right? So if you think your mission should be lasting 10 or 15 minutes and it's lasting 30, iterate, and at some point you get closer to that 15. That's an objective data right there. It's low cost, and it's a low-hanging fruit that's just there.
It was perfect. Thank you.
And you can do it all, right? So you observe, you ask, point, measure, you get it all, and you're blending. Hey, you're blending.
Any more questions?
Okay. You told us about how people give up on difficult games, on hard games, or easy games because it's boring. And I wanted to know your opinion. Why games that are considered hard, like Dark Souls, why people don't give up? Why people... Well, I didn't give up, and I wanted to know why. What made me stay after dying like 50 times?
It's a fantastic question, and Dark Soul is such a good example. Like, for instance, people would tell me, like, what if you had worked on Dark Soul, Phil? Would you have made the game easier because people would have kept dying? Now, the intention of Dark Soul is to have the people die often. The intention is to make the game hard. So why do people keep persevering, and why is that game good even though it's super hard? Dark Soul is not being played by 25 million people, by the way. Dark Soul has a good fan base. It's popular. I wouldn't say it's niche, but it's aiming at the players who are ready to sweat, like kind of rolling up their sleeves and like, all right, hit me. Like I'm ready. It's not, you know, it's really not The Sims, right? It's in The Sims you don't die, at least you're not supposed to. Maybe you can, but you know what I mean. Now, your other bit of the question is why some of them succeed? Because how can I say that? If a game is difficult, is it difficult for the right reasons? Right? It could be challenging. Have you ever played Super Meat Boy, for instance? It's a good example of a game. It's just that little character who jumps through Saw, and it's extremely difficult. But it's difficult, but the controls are tight and it's fun. It's difficult for the right reasons. The same reason Mega Man is a game that I just replayed Mega Man 10 recently. It was so hard, but for the right reasons. The game was not unfair. It was not cheating me. And Dark Souls, I guess you get that feeling that whenever you die, you're like, huh, now I know. And like, next time, I'm going to do better. I'm going to dodge quicker. I'm going to run in. I'm going to step back. It was my mistake. Not next time. Then you start playing. And then you get slashed again. You're like, my mistake. Not next time. The game is fair. It's difficult, but for the right reasons. So when a game is too difficult and it's frustrating, usually it's because of bad control. It's not reactive. It's just not fun. It's cheap. You don't know how to beat it. You think it's... There's different types of difficulty. One that is enjoyable and fair, the other one not so much.
Okay, yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Hi. I've been playing Anthem for 8 hours. I've found many problems with the game, but I also really enjoyed it, especially the core gameplay loop. I think it's amazing, and it's probably the most difficult thing for a designer. But I'm not going to ask about Anthem because reviews are coming out and the problems are being identified. What I'd like to know is what do you think the UR role in a game as a service as Anthem is going to be in the future, because more games are following that route?
It's such a good question. It's a question we're actually discussing among our group, like the UXR group at EA. It's a big topic for us. How can we adjust new reality? Because it used to be you would ship a game and you go like, wee, like you would just let it die or live, depending on if it was good or not. But there was no way to send updates, right? That's kind of a new thing. Now it's not even about updates and patching. It's about live games. I talked a lot about measuring. I talked a lot about telemetry, about gameplay data. I showed my very bad stats in Battlefield. I think the UXR, user research practitioner, has a role in the interpretation of that data. There is a way to help the analytics people make sense of all of that. What does that really mean? And again, I'm going to be corny again. I'm going to bring back the blender, but it's we can actually have a sample of players, have them invite them to our studio. People have been playing the game for 30, 40, 50, 60 hours. Invite them over and say, at this point, are you still having fun? What's missing? Like, we can still do the exact same technique, but while the game is live. It doesn't necessarily need to be in a game that is not out and where you need to have that super big NDA to sign before you can play. There's still a lot that we can do. And those are the first things that pops into my mind. But as the live service model explodes, we're going to get better and better at figuring out how we can help. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Any more questions?
I think you got one in the back after it.
Hi. So I was gonna go actually kind of to the opposite. What have you ever found situations, or what is your opinion about situations where you can do such a thing as too much user research? What I mean is where you have a situation where user research can actually become a crutch for designers. And do you believe that happens? And if so, you know.
It has happened. I'm going to give you a couple of examples. I'm not going to name any production, but I'm going to give you a couple of things that I've heard in the industry happening. When you set up a session, usually, ideally, you clean your version. You make sure that the build you're using, the in-development build, is always buggy. There will be bugs, right? You have to clean it, and you have to give as much as possible something that is bug-free. But cleaning it and I'm going to say debugging it, that's taking time and effort away from making the game. So that effort can become counterproductive when this wheel is actually spinning too fast, right? So you make a design, you do a study, you do the results and analysis, and you don't do that. When you skip that part, you don't make adjustment, and you're like, oh, we have another sessions in 3 weeks, let's run it. No, cancel it. Make your adjustment. Wait a minute, give me something new. Give me something with real adjustment to test to see if we made any progress. Because if you don't, that's fine. I'll find something else to do. I'll work on something else. It's fine. Don't run a session if you don't have any clear objective. Because I've seen a couple of sessions and user study being ran on build of versions of the game that was almost identical. Results came out almost identical, right? Pointless. And for me, that's too much research. That's taking time away from the dev team for cleaning something, making a good build, and then what comes out of it? Nothing. Everybody's wasting time, everybody's wasting energy, and everybody's wasting effort. All right.
And what about the idea of being as a crutch? The point is, what I mean is, like, there were a lot of articles, and as my experience also as a developer, which is the fact that sometimes the iterative process is taken a little bit too far. So as a way for you to, instead of using all those usability and design guidelines, you design at a very high level, then you let user research answer for you things that should have been happening in pre-production phases, right?
Yes.
So have you come across that, and what is your opinion on that?
Well, if I get this
There's been a trend a little bit on the industry.
yeah, the question is, like, sometimes are we trying to assess and provide information from a build that is not ready or at a point where we should actually run a study? Is that what you're asking?
Kind of, yeah.
Okay. Yes, but I think more and more the user research practitioner are being more mature and they're being smarter. What happened in the past, and I remember when I was a bit more junior, I came up with this huge list of issues after a session, after a study. It was like, you need to fix this and that, this and that, this and that. And I got crushed by the producer. Literally, like, I got, like, my self-esteem was like this. Like, I left the room, my self-esteem left way before me. Like, it was hard because it said, all right, this is not ready. This we knew. This is a feature. This is a placeholder. This we knew. This and that. And I was like, oh my God, I'm wasting everybody's time. Because the objective that I wanted to pursue were one that you usually pursue when you're beta. I ask the player, what do you think? Do you like it? At this point, we're prototype. I'm not interested in if a player liking it or not. I don't even know. I don't even want to know your opinion. I don't want to, you're not a creative visionary, you're just a player. I want to know if you can play the game or not. Are you comfortable with the control? Do you like the controls? That I'm interested, but not do you like the game? So when I show up with, I say, the players don't really like the game. And obviously they were all like, yeah, sure, we know this. We don't even have a game. I mean, there's no art. There's nothing in there. Why are you telling me this now? And I'm like, I'm going to go home now. I'm going to close my PowerPoint and leave. And please forget, smoke bomb. I want it to disappear. But that's new. So yes, too much user research and bad user. I would even say not too much, but I've seen bad user research because I was after the wrong things. I was trying to get information about something that was not ready. That was a mistake on my part. I learned.
Hi. I was curious about early stage testing. Like, how different are they from the final stages? How do you do it? How early do you do it? And how do you deal with, like, the expectancy of quality of the player and these kind of aspects?
Yeah, well, actually, it's great because we're actually touching on that slowly but surely. I'm going to bring up again this last slide. I'm happy. Scott didn't burn it all for me. It's fine. Final here, when we're close to release date, I can do everything. I can assess every part of the game because it's final. So I can ask a player, are you having fun? We can get there. Prototyping, I can only assess what's ready. I can only assess the game to the point that it is. At this point, asking the player, do you have fun on a prototype, it gives me a benchmark, it gives me a milestone, and I'm like, all right, we get 2.5 out of 5. We get a 2-star out of 5-star on average with player. It needs to go up. It can only go up, but it will go up for sure because the game is just not done. I would never ask a player to do that on the prototype. Maybe another designer, another experienced designer, but not your everyday player. Why? Because players are used to play finished game. When you ask a player who is not experienced, you're asking him to project himself. You're asking him or herself, So you're asking the player to say, hey, do you think this is promising? No, this is creative designer's job to have a vision to say where the game is coming. Even myself today, sometimes I have a hard time figuring it out. So you can't really get a lot of appreciation data early on. And you don't need to go on big samples early on. You need to keep it agile. As I was saying to the gentleman in the first row, 5 to 8, 6 to 8 participants, just a quick 15 to 20 minute session. Just even if you don't have any art in your level, they're all white boxes, like in the Matrix when they train with Neo and whatnot. Just have that one level. Ask the player, jump on the block. Whoop, jumps on the block, all right? Just jump off the block. Roll around, jump, slide, jump back onto the blocks. All right, how did that feel? I don't know, I had to push 3 times on the button for it to jump. Oh, responsiveness is not there. Here you go, now you're figuring out bits and pieces of the things, just core action. That core action, figuring out the responsiveness of the jump button, if you have to fix it, when you get here, you're gonna generate bugs. Production managers will hate you because you're changing things at the very end. It will break other things, and it's gonna be extremely complicated. So that fundamental playtesting at prototyping stage is actually one that probably will make you save more money and effort than all of the testing. You just have to be smart and be reasonable to the scope of the sessions of the test that you can run. Don't try to assess the potential of your game, because the potential is not there yet. The potential, you'll start seeing it around beta. I got sidetracked. I don't know, am I still answering your question?
I think you answered it, yeah. It was about how early do you start testing.
As early as there's something. I don't even need a game to start doing something interesting. I could only have, I mean, we've run very interesting stuff for narrative in the past. We're just having a storyboard, right? Hero wakes up, hero jumps through the window, hero saves the little cat from the tree, hero meets with, enemy and blah, 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 blah. Hero goes back to sleep. How does that story sound? Do you want to be that character? Do you want to be this and that? I don't even have a prototype yet. We're at the concept stage. There's a lot of things that we can do super early. Even paper prototype. We can think of card sorting exercise for your menu. I don't even need a functional menu. I can just only have illustration of your menu and just have people look at it at the picture and say, hey, if you needed to end your mission, where would you click? There. Wrong, it's not there. If I got 6 out of 8 players who would click there, I'm like, maybe your menu is not intuitive. You haven't started building it yet. You just gave me mock-ups. Ask your expert and go out and look for examples. They are out there. User research, for me, is useful as early as conceptual phase. And as a gentleman there asked, I think it's going to be useful for live games. It's a philosophy. It's a way of thinking. Now I hope I answered your question, because then I went on and I started.
Yes, thank you.
Hello. I was kind of curious about more on the end of the process or on a continuous process with patches, etc. If you also look at certain considerations in how many features you add up to a patch to make more impact or not. Because in some cases, I believe that if you do a lot of continuous small patches, people will still feel it isn't improving. And maybe the impact can differ if you make a big patch, big release, that really sends everybody saying, yes, it became a lot better. If that also is included in the research from user experience part.
Yes, very interesting question. Nobody ever asked me that, so it's a good one. I'm not prepared for that, but I'm going to try to cook something. Patches. When those patches come out, some of the issues that are brought up in those patches or that are fixed, some of them are sometimes seamless for the player. Sometimes we're only fixing bugs. Like you could hear in Assassin's Creed, if you go in that corner, people have showed it on YouTube that you actually go through and fall through the crack of the game and game breaks and you lose your save game and wow, unacceptable. Patches fixes that. The players won't even notice. So in this case, do you really need user research? Not really when it's about bug fixing. However, when it's little things that are about calibrating, you can think of games like Overwatch. And Overwatch has been patching their game and fixing things and calibrating it, literally like a DJ, like just playing with the sound in a console until like the game is balanced and work. Now those tests, when I speak of user research during development, very often we work with samples of groups of 25, 50, 60 players. For usability, I like to work with 8 because I think it's sufficient. People tend to work sometimes up to 12. Now, for these changes that we're talking about, the Overwatch example, this is sometimes being done online with groups of A/B testing. Like I haven't conducted this research myself, but I know those are things that are being done out there. Literally, they're going to be doing these changes for just 5,000, 10,000 players that are really targeted. And these people know, they got an email and it's like, hey, right? And with these players, we're going to have an idea, like if we start tuning up our sniper rifle, are people like, is the kill death ratio of people carrying a sniper rifle increasing, decreasing? Like, what's the impact? Before we actually release it to the world, where millions of players are going to experience it. So we kind of do a sampling, but there's a lot of live testing that are being done in those environments as well. And for me, that's user research. It's not user research in labs, that's user research in the actual environment, but that's user research. It's us testing the changes before sending it out there, because we don't want to make things worse. We don't want to nerf the sniper rifle so that it kills the game. We want to make sure that the tweak is gentle, but works and has the actual desired effect. So that's the kind of things that can be done. You see that a lot on mobile as well. On mobile games, you're gonna have what we call A/B testing. So some people will have interface A, some people will have interface B, and we'll have an idea of like, are people engaging in that new activity if we push it forward here? Or actually, like the Madden example from Scott was great earlier. Like just these changes in interface can have a huge difference, and it allows us to assess, yes, that's the behavior that we want. Screw it, everybody goes with interface A. That's the type of tests and research that could be done on live patches. Does that answer the question?
It answered a part of it, but what I was really curious about, if some releases get hold just with the purpose of improving the impact that it does, so that when the player sees it, he gets like a big release and really feels the difference, or not, or if it does normally, if this case is really studied. So
are people perceiving the changes that we're doing and how they feel about it?
Yes, if you study, if you need to add eight patches from a certain level, or if you need to release the first one right now, or let's say that doesn't give a good enough impact, but if we do this feature or bug fix together with the other one, it does have an impact and players will be happy instead of just doing one by one.
It's absolutely. Well, okay, now I know that those things are being done. I don't know if it's being done by every company. I don't know if it's being done recurrently, but I know that it's being done. But in this case, very often it's fallen into the laps of so I can't really speak to that very well, because from my understanding of your question, it falls into the lap of other types of researcher and actor in big companies. Now we talk community managers, people who actually look, for instance, like Rainbow Six, the comments on the forum and the subreddit, it's a gold mine for them to fix. Like once you remove all the bad language and the things that are just plain mean, when you dig in and you get to the constructive criticism, very often that's where it happens. And if you want to get a community sentiment or the patch and did it have the desired effect, people are very vocal. People are passionate about games, and they do go out and comment on these forums. And then you get those marketing research, and you get these other types of studies that are being done. User research are maybe not that involved into assessing community sentiment. Community sentiment is, I'm not the expert of that, but I know that it's being done, and I don't know that it exists. I think that was more the answer you're looking for?
Well, both actually, so thank you.
We've got time for one more question. Does anyone have one?
So Anthem recently got the demo up on its demo on the what's the launcher again? I don't recall. But what I wanted to ask is if you or your team went through the data, the feedback from the players after playing the demo, and took that into account in the final stages of the developing of the game?
That's a fair question. I'm going to say this. I mean, right now, I can't really speak to Anthem and what it's doing, so I'm going to be very careful about what I'm saying, because I'm not sure what I'm allowed to say or not. But I'm going to tell you this. Demos, betas, everything that is early access and giving, that is about companies, whether it's EA, whether it's Ubisoft, whether it's Blizzard, every time a company or a production puts the game into the player's hands early, before releasing the final build, there's always the intention of collecting feedback and fixing things. Those early access, those demo, are never only, in my experience at least, they're never only a marketing exercise just to get people hyped and then they're all gonna buy it, or just show the people that we care because we get a little bit of it free. So it's never a PR exercise, it's never a marketing exercise. There's always an objective of learning more, to fix things, and prep it for its release. Now, how did it happen on Anthem? Again, I'm not, I helped, but I'm not the lead researcher, and I can't really phrase any statement in regards to Anthem, but I can assure you that when that happens, that's for every company that I've ever worked for, the intention is, yeah, to fix things. So I wouldn't be surprised if that would be the case.
Thank you.
That's all the time we had. I ask you for a big round of applause to Phil Renaud.
Thank you.